We have recently seen Fed Chair Jerome Powell just downplay the volatility in equity markets at a Q&A session at the Dallas Fed recently. How worrying are valuations right now across the U.S., and could this volatility be the cause of another dot-com or 2008-like bust?
I don't think so. I mean, volatility is here. I don't think it's the thing you should focus on. I think we've had a market that's basically been flat this whole year. If you look at it since Trump took office, it's up maybe 33%, something like that, depending on whether you look at high tech or the S&P or Dow. I think it's a nice, solid growth in the market, and I'm looking forward to continued prosperity.
And yet a crucial part of the economy, the housing sector, we've been getting mixed reports. Today's home sales number seemed a little bit better than expected, but at the same time, we saw home builder sentiment plunge the most in 4 years. How big of a threat is this sector for the broader economy?
It's huge. I mean, housing is huge. You cannot have a boom in the U.S. economy without housing and construction being part of it. You just can't. I mean, and new housing starts per 10,000 population is the key central figure you need to look at carefully. And if you look at the last 8 years or prior to this past year, you've looked at new housing starts per 10,000 population being extremely low by any historical standards. So we really need to get housing market going and growing to get this prosperity. But I fully anticipate it will happen. And I'm looking forward to Powell bringing interest rates back up to where they should be at normal market rates so that this sector of the economy doesn't get starved of capital.
Wait a minute. I think I just heard Dr. Laffer say that he's looking forward to Fed Chair Powell raising the interest rates. That is not what President Trump says. So is the president wrong then, in your mind, to go at odds with the Fed Chair?
Well, if you want to talk to President Trump, please do. I'm an economist. I support President Trump, and I understand his background. He loves low interest rates because he historically, as a businessman, was a borrower. But honestly, what you need are interest rates that match demand and supply. Interest rates, when they're too high, they kill demand. Interest rates, when they're too low, kill the supply of capital flowing into this market. And what you need is the interest rates to come back up to their market levels and then have the Fed get out of the business of trying to control rates. It makes no sense.
Dr. Laffer, in your book, you lay this out very easy to understand. Anyone who's looking to try to understand what exactly the president is looking to do with his economic policies, read this book. It's a very worthwhile read to understand.
Thank you very much,
But
Kevin.
let me ask you, with the president's trade policies, particularly with China, you've said that you think a trade war with China is not a good thing. So I guess
it's horrible.
As a supporter of the president's economic policies, what should the president's end goal be, Dr. Laffer, in terms of where exactly this is all headed? They're going to meet in Buenos Aires.
You know, the president has made it clear time and time again that he's in favor of total free trade. When he left the G7 in Ottawa, he said to the other 6 members, he said, if you guys are willing to go to free trade, non-tariff barriers eliminated and tariffs gone, I'm willing to do it right now. That's where he's going. But how do you get countries like China, which are not free trade, how do you get them to negotiate and bring down their property, intellectual property rights of Americans? How do you get them to bring down the tariffs? How do you bring them to open their markets as well as our markets? And, you know, he's got a strategy that I'm not an expert on. I don't know how to negotiate. I'm no good at it. And I cry whenever I think of a negotiation. And I climb under my bed in a fetal position and go, tell me when it's all over. But Trump is a negotiator, and he believes, and I think he really believes it, and I think he's going to be successful, is that he's going to get a free trade deal with China because of the strategy that he's been using. And I couldn't want a free trade deal more than I do right now with China, especially. They should be our best friends. I mean, when you look at China, Kevin, or Shery, I mean, when you look at China, without Walmart, there is no middle class or lower class prosperity in America. And without China, there is no Walmart. They are the best partners America could possibly have, but it's got to be free trade.
How bad will the fallout?
That's the way we should go.
How bad will the fallout be until President Trump is successful? As you say, we are now seeing farmers getting hit hard. President Trump had promised them a $12 billion package. We're now hearing that only around $800 million of that has been paid out. How much tougher will it get?
Well, I don't know how much tougher it'll get for farmers or for specific groups. Already, if you look at the U.S. GDP growth and employment growth, there's very little aggregate impact so far. But when you look at periods like the Great Depression, which was clearly caused by a protectionist move on the Smoot-Hawley tariff, if you look at the early 1970s, when I was in the White House, it was Nixon's 10% import surcharge, devaluation of the U.S. dollar. What he did was he had the job development credit that excluded foreign. He caused the halving of the stock market and the horrible economy of the mid-1970s. I don't think anything like that's going to happen, but a trade war would be a very bad thing to have happen, and I think China should sit down with President Trump right now and negotiate free trade for the world, and we'll double the stock market in 2 years.
It looks like we're headed to tariff levels.
I thought you'd like that.
It looks like it's headed towards 25% tariffs starting January. No matter, even if they sit down right now, the prospects don't look too bright. So when that happens, what will be the impact on consumers? Will they be as jolly to spend as they've been this year?
But, you know what, I do think that Trump is doing this with regard to negotiations with China to get them to come to the table and negotiate a real free trade agreement and take all of these tariffs away. I truly believe that is his strategy, and I know that is his mindset.
Right.
Anyone who's run an international business has to be a free trader, and he had the big international business. He knows what free trade means. And I've even joked with him about having 2 imported wives. Heck, he's got to be a free trader.
We've got like 30 seconds left, but I want to ask you, if they get to infrastructure, can the U.S. handle that amount of economic stimulus?
Yes, but I think the infrastructure is needed, not just stimulus. I don't think it has anything to do with stimulus. I think it has to do with infrastructure, which is a very highly productive source of capital, and I think that would be a great use of government spending, but no other government spending. I mean, entitlement programs just pay people to be unemployed. We've got to get growth and then reduce those entitlements dramatically.